On today's supplement spotlight, we are talking about omega-3s, specifically fish oil, and why it's one of the most underrated brain upgrades high achievers like you are missing. We're going to be getting deep in this video. So let's start off with the basics. Fish oil is one of the richest sources of omega-3 fatty acids, but we're not just talking about any omega-3s here. We're specifically talking about two powerful long-chain fatty acids that your brain can't get enough of, which are EPA and DHA. And the way that I want you to think about EPA and DHA, I want you to think of them like your brain's VIP nutrients. They don't just support your brain health, they actually help to build it. And here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that your brain isn't just an organ, it's like a literal living electrical fatty ecosystem. And the quality of the fat that is in your brain determines everything from how fast you think, how clearly you focus, how stable your mood is, to how deeply you sleep and how long you stay sharp as you age. And so I'm going to be diving into each one of these fatty acids. We're going to be talking about the research of them as well. And so to start off with, DHA is the structural backbone of your brain. Okay, so it makes up about 40% of the total fatty acids in your brain. Yeah, so like 40%, that's a lot. And the way that I want you to think about it is like imagine trying to build a skyscraper, but you're skipping out on that steel frame. So that's how your brain is when it's low on DHA. You need DHA to build and maintain the architecture of your brain. It's found in areas of your brain like your gray matter, your neuronal membranes, and especially in the cerebral cortex. This is the part of your brain that controls memory, attention, perception, thought language, and consciousness. And in fact, 25% of all the fatty acids that are in the cerebral cortex area of your brain are DHA. And it makes up 50% of all the polyunsaturated fatty acids in your entire central nervous system. It's literally that important. On the other hand, EPA, it gets a little bit of a less spotlight because it only makes up about 1% of your brain fat, but don't underestimate it, okay? EPA, I want you to think of it as like your inflammation fighter. It's your cell membrane stabilizer, your vascular support system, and it plays a really critical role in mood, resilience, and blood flow, which directly impact how your brain performs under pressure. So I'm going to be going through these types of fatty acids, and we're going to go through the research so that by the end of this, you can really understand the differences between DHA, EPA, and which is a better one to use depending on what your health goals are. So as you can start to see, these fatty acids are extremely important for your brain. And not sure if you knew this, but your brain is literally 50 to 60% lipids by weight, and 35% of these lipids are omega-3s, or at least they should be. Unfortunately, though, most people don't even come close to that number. So that means that your brain is running on this like deficit mode of omega-3s. Most people, which is actually wild. So when we look at omega-3s, we also have something called omega-6s. Okay, they're another type of fatty acid, also important as well, but omega-6s tend to cause us to be in that more of that inflammatory state, versus omega-3s actually help to kind of decrease inflammation in our bodies. What happens to a lot of us is that we end up having 15 to 20 more omega-6s than omega-3s in our body, which is a wild ratio, right? Like it's like a 15 to 1 or 20 to 1 ratio. And so we end up having more of those pro-inflammatory type omega acids in our body, and we don't want that. We want there to be a more balanced ratio so that we also have more of those anti-inflammatory type omega acids, and that's where the omega-3s come in, and having that ratio is important. A lot of what we eat in the Western diet actually promotes more of that omega-6 high diet, and this is something that we really, really want to watch out for. And this is why fish oil can be such a brain changer, because when you feed your brain the exact raw materials, you start to feel better and sharper and clearer and more focused and more of you. So now that you know what omega-3 fatty acids are, let's actually talk about how they work, because this is where things get even more interesting. Omega-3 fatty acids aren't just like good for you. They're actually foundational to how your brain communicates, functions, and protects itself. And when you take in EPA and DHA through food or supplements, they don't just float around aimlessly. Your body knows and brain knows exactly what to do with them. So when you actually take these omega-3s in, they get built directly in your cell membrane. membranes. Think of them as these like little reinforcements, right? They're sent to the front lines and they embed inside your membranes of your red blood cells, of your platelets, of your immune cells, and they make these cells more flexible, resilient, and intelligent. And most importantly, they become a part of your brain cells, and this is where the real magic happens. When EPA and DHA integrate into your neurons, they do a few crucial things. So number one, they enhance the fluidity of your brain cell membrane. Why does that matter? This matters because more fluid membranes means that you have better electrical signaling. It means that you have faster communication between neurons, and you have more effective neurotransmitter release like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. So you think faster, you feel better, and then you end up reacting smarter because your membranes of your cells are functioning better. They also slow something called apoptosis, which is the scientific word for programmed cell definition. So this means that omega-3s can actually help your brain preserve its cells longer, prevent premature aging and degeneration, and they also fight something called oxidative stress and reduce inflammation in the brain, which are two of the biggest enemies of memory, mood, and motivation. And this is really where EPA shines. So I want you to think of it as almost like this like fire extinguisher for inflammation, and it acts against that bodyguard against oxidative damage. It also helps to stabilize vascular tone, and it improves blood flow to the brain, which means that your brain is getting more oxygen, more nutrients, and just overall better performance. And at the neurotransmitter level, fish oil doesn't just assist neurotransmitters, they also amplify their effects by improving the membrane structure, receptor sensitivity, and signal transmission. But the longer that you really take EPA and DHA, the more powerful their impact becomes, because you're not just getting the short-term wins, you're laying that kind of groundwork for long-term cognitive preservation. And you're building a brain that resists burnout, that stays resilient under pressure, and doesn't just perform well today, but performs even better with age. And you're literally able to slow down that brain aging, reduce your risk of neurodegeneration, and protect that mental edge that makes you who you are. I personally think it's really a non-negotiable supplement if you really want to play life at your highest levels. And with that being said, let's dig into the research and the science behind fish oil and what the studies show. To start off, a 2023 review published in Current Opinion in Lipidology found that people with higher omega-3 levels had better nonverbal memory, faster thinking, and a stronger executive function, which are all markers of a high-performing brain. Let's go through what these markers actually mean. So nonverbal memory is your brain's ability to recall images, patterns, faces, and visual cues. It's what helps you read a room, spot opportunities, and pick up on what others might miss, which, if you ask me, is a major edge in business, leadership, and high-stakes environments. Cognitive processing speed is how quickly your brain takes in information and responds. And in today's fast-paced world, slow thinking equals missed opportunities. And faster processing means sharper decisions, clearer thinking, and more mental energy. And executive functioning, that's essentially your brain's CEO. It's what helps you plan, prioritize, stay focused, resist distractions, and manage emotions. It's what allows you to perform at your highest level under pressure. The study also found gender-specific benefits. So men with higher omega-3s had better executive functioning and speed, while women showed stronger verbal and non-verbal episodic memory. So this is the kind of memory that fuels emotional intelligence, storytelling, and deep connection. So if you're someone who leads, builds, coaches, creates, this isn't just helpful, it's essential, because success doesn't come from pushing harder, it comes from thinking clearer, and your brain needs the right fuel to do that. Another powerful finding comes from research on DHA's downstream product. And so what this research study found is that DHA can be really helpful for protecting brain and protecting the brain specifically from neurodegeneration long term. And they found that because when you look at DHA and it's metabolized in its downstream product called neuroprotectin D1. So this compound plays a massive role in brain protection. It helps to prevent brain cell death, reduces neuroinflammation, and repairs aging neuron. It's even been shown to lower the buildup of something called amyloid beta plaques. So these are the same things that are linked to Alzheimer's disease. And in fact, studies have found that people with healthy DHA can actually slow cognitive aging by up to 2.5 years. Like, that's wild when you think about it. Like, you can literally slow your aging, cognitive aging, by 2.5 years if you end up taking, the right amount of DHA at the right times and moments in your life. There was another review and study done that revealed that EPA may have even more impact than DHA in cognitive function. By the way, if you're curious about these studies, I have linked them all in the bio of this video. So EPA has been shown to boost mental performance, improve blood oxygen saturation to the brain, and reduce inflammation that can cloud your thinking. So when higher doses of omega-3s were taken consistently, so around 2 grams per day for 6 weeks, blood levels reached saturation, meaning that the brain was actually being properly fueled. And that's the key here that you need to understand. You can't just take fish oil once and expect results. This is all about that long-term high-performance brain care. One study even found that omega-3s helped to reduce memory problems related to loneliness, which was really wild, especially at higher doses. And this is really cool too, because it just kind of points to the fact that loneliness isn't always emotional, and it can actually impact your brain on that biological level. And so omega-3s help to protect cognitive function in people who are emotionally isolated or under chronic stress. Just another little reminder, right, that your brain sometimes needs that nourishment in other ways to actually be resilient in these hard seasons of life. And when it comes to mental health, omega-3s can shine even brighter. So in people struggling with depression, EPA dominant fish oils consistently showed the strongest impact. And the reason for this is that EPA reduces neuroinflammation, it modulates key neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and it boosts something called BDNF. This is your brain's growth and resilience molecules. And so it's really wild to see how it can impact that brain chemistry and literally upgrade it. In ADHD, especially in kids and adults with a low baseline omega-3 levels, fish oil has been shown to improve attention, reduce impulsivity, and support focus. And the combination of EPA and DHA appear to be more effective than either alone. But again, consistency and dose does matter. When it comes to anxiety, early research also shows that EPA may reduce anxiety symptoms, particularly in people under chronic stress. And the mechanism of action is that it likely works by calming inflammation in the brain and supporting cortisol regulation. There's even starting to be some promising data around PTSD showing that omega-3s might help the brain adapt more easily and bounce back from stress effectively. So across all these studies, here are some clear mechanisms of actions that stand out in terms of how omega-3s can support our brain health. So omega-3s can help to reduce inflammation, protect neurons, regulate the neurotransmitters, enhance plasticity, and support the brain's ability to grow, adapt, and stay sharp. And when you think about being a high performer, this is the type of upgrade that can help you feel better and just lead life better. Now, here are some things that you want to watch out for and be cautious about when you are taking fish oil. So fish oil is generally very well tolerated, but some people do experience mild side effects. So things like stomach being upset, fishy burps, burping, nausea, heartburn, or diarrhea. And taking this supplement with food usually helps to prevent some of these side effects. And what's even more important for you to remember is that the quality of fish oil matters a lot, because not all fish oil is created equal. So some cheaper brands can actually contain oxidized fats, contaminants, and saturated fats, or even impurities that can actually do more harm than good. That's why it's so important to look for high quality, third-party tested omega-3 supplements that prioritize EPA and DHA and are free from heavy metals. Like, I am constantly correcting my patients' supplement brands because they're usually not taking high quality ones. And you also want to watch out when taking fish oil with other medications, because fish oil does tend to have a mild blood thinning effect. So you do want to be cautious if you're taking, medications that affect clotting. And so very important to always talk to your healthcare provider if you are unsure. But for most people, high quality fish oil is generally safe, effective, and incredibly beneficial when you use it wisely. And so how do you use it wisely? And what is that right dose for brain power? So the minimum recommended dose of EPA and DHA daily is about 250 milligrams of that combined dose, which you can get if you eat enough fatty fish a few times a week. But personally, if you ask me, that is way too low of a dose, just considering how much saturated fats and other fatty acids that we get from our food. And when you really, want to support that brain health, performance, and mood regulation, you generally need a higher dose. Like, for example, the American Heart Association recommends getting closer to a gram per day of combined EPA and DHA. And, when I really support my patients, we're going up to like 2-3 grams of that high EPA or DHA dose, depending on what it is that they are looking for support with. Fish oil is definitely a part of my supplement protocol. And, I really openly talk about my journey with depression on this channel. And there's such a huge link between depression and inflammation, and how EPA helps to kind of decrease that inflammatory response. And through this has a very positive impact and effect on depression effects. And so I generally take a high EPA fish oil to really support my mood, make sure the inflammation in my body's lower. And then, the week before my cycle, I'll end up taking a bit of a higher dose of fish oil and kind of doubling that dose to really keep that inflammation down. Because when you look at PMS type symptoms, inflammation is such a big issue that a lot of us have. And when you can have fish oil that supports that in a really healthy way, then it really can prevent some of those symptoms as well. So I'm, constantly changing and switching my dosing up again, but a high EPA fish oil is definitely a critical part of my supplement protocol. And something I really wanted to add in here is that you want to make sure that you are taking fish oil for long enough to see the beneficial impacts, like minimum for 3 to 6 months, because it is one of those supplements that it does take some time for your body to really notice the shifts and changes with it. So if you want to operate at your next level, fish oil might be a tool for you to consider adding to your tool belt. And if you want to learn exactly which supplements are right for your brain, your hormones, your nervous system, and how to really build a plan that supports your next level success, book a complimentary 30-minute breakthrough session with me and let's chat about your plan.